man, I mean, the rabbit hole. Look, you know what this calls for? The lore alarm. Because, I mean, if there's ever a time to explore the lore, well, that's fun. Explore the lore.
We are lore whores around here.
I mean, come on. It's time to dive deep into Undertaker and what happened to his parents. Because another thing that I've been like, oh, yeah, whatever. Taker's parents died. Him and Kane were brothers. There's a fire or something. I kind of like had this like cloudy understanding of what happened. But man, Paul Bearer and Undertaker went into great detail on Raws leading up to this as to what happened with the Undertaker's parents and his little brother Kane. Matthew, I mean, how familiar? I mean, you're a big Undertaker guy, so I'm sure you're intimately familiar with the, quite frankly, the tragic upbringing of Mr. Undertaker.
If I remember correctly, because it has been a long time since I've revisited the Raws and stuff from this era where they lay everything out. But there was a fire that was started supposedly by the Undertaker that killed, or so he thought, his parents and his brother Kane. But Paul has he let us know that Kane did not die in the fire, that Kane is alive? Because they were kind of alluding to that on commentary.
Yes. I think it was the week before this show they did. Yes.
Yeah. Because we are on the road to one of the greatest debuts in wrestling history, which will be at Bad Blood in Hell in a Cell.
Long build, by the way. It's like 3 months away, though. That's like, man, it's a long build up for. I mean, I guess it ended up being worthwhile, but man. But yes, just to kind of paint the picture here. So Paul Bearer, for a while, he had threatened Undertaker via blackmail. He's like, if you don't let me manage you, I'm gonna reveal your dark secret to the world. Eventually, Taker got fed up with it. He's like, whatever. Tell it, Paul. Who gives a turkey? That's what Undertaker said. So Paul comes out on Raw.
Is it a turkey because of the gobbledygooker? And
yeah, it's really this long-term storytelling.
That's really good.
Kind of amazing.
I'm proud of you
when you really think about it. Which just so Paul Bearer comes. Vince McMahon's in the ring. He calls out Paul Bearer. As Paul Bearer is coming to the ring, I've never seen this. Paul Bearer is walking to the ring. A random fan hops the barricade and tackles him like in slow motion. It's just the most awkward. And commentary is like, oh, it's one of the creatures of the night trying to stop Paul Bearer from telling his secret. But wild scenes. So both Paul Bearer and Undertaker kind of have their interpretation of it. So Paul Bearer explains that Undertaker's father was a mortician and his mother was the secretary at this funeral home, and Paul Bearer was the apprentice to Undertaker's father, which I'd never really known how Paul Bearer came into the equation. So that was kind of a nice piece of lore to add to the equation.
That's also the same sound I make when I come. My understanding is that Paul Bearer was actually a mortician prior to wrestling too. So
he was. So there's a nugget of truth to this. So Paul Bearer is easy. They're all in this funeral home, and the parents have these two kids, Undertaker and a sweet little boy named Kane.
Yeah, real sweet.
He's just like Paul's like he had this bratty redheaded kid, Undertaker, and this sweet little tyke Kane, who just followed Undertaker. He just mimed whatever he did. He was his biggest influence, and he just did whatever Undertaker did. And one day, Paul Bearer left to go to his mortician school or whatever, comes back, and the funeral home is in ashes. There's fire trucks, there's ambulances. And somehow Paul knows that the parents died, and he's distraught. Paul Bearer looks behind him into the bushes. Who does he see? The Undertaker. And through that, he has put together that the Undertaker committed arson and killed his parents on purpose.
Yeah, seems like a big. I mean, you return to the scene of the crime, right? He's hiding, he's watching because he's clearly guilty. I also, I think that the urn contains the ashes of his dead parents that he gets his power from.
Oh, That makes a lot of sense.
And for a while he thought his brother, but then that's not a,
Well, see, yeah, so Paul, he doesn't make it clear who exactly. He says that the parents died. So he's cutting this whole promo. He's running down. Undertaker was a bratty kid. He would take Kane and they would smoke cigarettes behind the funeral home. They were like playing with the embalming fluid or whatever. And this comes into play later in the show where Undertaker is backstage. He's crying. Little bitch boy Undertaker backstage in his dark locker rooms. Like, God damn, it's true, everybody. It's true. I killed my parents and my brother. And he says that him and Kane were playing with matches that day. And the father saw them playing with the matches, and the father punished them because the embalming fluid is super flammable. So you can't be playing with matches, is what the father said.
Clearly not.
So Undertaker said, okay, I won't play with the matches. He went to go do his chores. And then as he was doing his chores, I guess somewhere outside of the funeral home, he saw Kane walking out in the back of the funeral home with the embalming fluid, doing God knows what with it. So Undertaker goes and does his chores, comes back, using it as lubricant. Comes back.
Embalming fluid is the best lubricant.
Fluid.
Ming fluid. Yep.
Ming fluid. So Undertaker comes back and he sees that the funeral home is on fire. He smells the smoke. He sees the fire trucks, and he doesn't know what happened. He was doing his chores. He comes back, and the funeral home is ablaze, and the policemen, the firemen wouldn't let him go in. So for all he knew, his parents and his brother both perished in that funeral home. He's again. I mean, the whole deal with the Undertaker, like he's not actually a zombie, but he's taken this childhood trauma and now he gets power from the dead. Because without death, there can be no life.
True.
You know what I'm saying?
The entire time you were giving us the lore here, I was thinking the whole Katie Vick thing makes so much sense, knowing that Kane grew up in a funeral home, because like obviously that would be a kink of his, right? Growing up in a funeral home, necrophilia, like it all ties in.
You know what's so that's a great point. Because more lore, I mean, like, so just the title, like Undertaker's living his whole life through elementary school, high school, college, his early adulthood, going to wrestling school. He's living his life thinking his brother is dead. But while Undertaker is dealing with this trauma and this heartache, Kane is just busting nuts into women in the back of a car and then speeding and then crashing into people.
And
Kane doesn't care.
Who raised Kane? Who was taking care of Kane? Like, who was allowing this to happen at the time? You know, because mom and dad were dead. Kane was assumed dead. As far as we know, Undertaker was taken in by Paul Bearer and raised by Paul Bearer. Paul Bearer put him through wrestling school, which the idea of the Undertaker just going to wrestling school and like taking bumps and shit was hilarious to me for some reason. The way you presented it.
I'm looking up fire-based wrestlers because I'm trying to like. Is there another like? I mean, Kane is the guy. Like that's all that's coming up. Terry Funk, maybe he used fire a lot in his matches. I don't know. Maybe Kane was just free range. He was just out in the woods, maybe just hopping from couch to couch throughout his entire life. Because he didn't. The mask ultimately wasn't for physical scars; it was psychological. So like, I mean,
Jason Voorhees after his mom got beheaded, just hanging out in the woods, jerking off with embalming fluid, raising himself.
Yeah. You think he's jerking off the embalming fluid like his entire childhood?
I think that's how the fire started. Friction, right? He ran out of embalming fluid, and the friction, and then the spark. The jar probably had a leak in it. So as he was walking out to his special spot out in the woods, you know, and then
We
the
all
fire
got a
just
special
caught
spot.
and came right back to, and then.
I mean, perhaps, and that just really that begs the question. So Kane, you know, is his entrance, the fire. Yes.
It's also why his right arm was the only part of him that wasn't burnt, because that's the arm he used to.
Because otherwise, you would see the asymmetrical arms.
Yeah, the scarring and all of that would be there, but it's not.
He had to take a few years to, like, you know, stop doing curls or jerking off with the other hand, maybe, to make it more even. But the fire in his entrance on the stage and on the ring posts, is that all just a big metaphor for his semen?
Probably.
If
anyone is still listening at this point, we fucking apologize. We are so sorry.
There's 4 matches. We got to stretch. So, but yeah, no, it's, I mean, honestly, like, it's campy, it's silly, but I admire the detail to the story.
Oh, I loved this story growing up. Like, this is one of the feud with Taker and Mankind, I think, was the first one that hooked me. Like the Boiler Room Brawl stuff and all of that, and Paul Bearer turning on the Undertaker. And then this is like my bread and butter. This is where, like, I really fell in love with Undertaker and what he would do going forward. And Kane was such a cool looking character. And there was all of this lore. You got it. Lore. Thank you.
I'm learning.
It was so cool. And it as ridiculous as it is looking back on it and unbelievable as a child, this was the most fascinating fucking thing to me. This whole idea of how these two came to be, and Kane's still alive. And I think eventually we find out that either Kane actually started the fire or maybe Paul Bearer started the fire.
I think it was Paul Bearer, personally.
Yeah, if I remember correctly.
But yeah, so but again, we have a few more months until Kane shows up. So they're really planting the seeds, so to speak. Oh, by the way, we got Vader here. He's facing the Undertaker.